evening. It's great to be here with all of you. Thank you for that kind introduction, Conrad. And Mom, it's good to see you. Thanks for supporting me. I want to give a few thanks, but before I give a few thanks, you know what? I'm going to scrap the speech because I heard in the bathroom a couple guys here really kind of capture the poignancy of this moment. Parents, if you ask your kids where are they going after this, you can find me in the back of the Jack Doe, too. That was the song. Does anyone not know that song? Okay, well, they were singing the song in the bathroom. You can find me in the back of the Jack Doe tailgate. I found that really poignant, and so now I'm going to give my speech. No, I do. And if I sweat, I feel like I got handed down, I got bequeathed to me from Martin Wees, who gave last year's commencement address. I was starting to sweat out there. He's like, you're going to need this. And then after he gave it to me, he's like, I think it's from last year. So it's got some accumulated sweat on it, so that would be good. I'll use that. But some thanks to Kirby. Where are you, Kirby? Kirby's why I'm here, and a bunch of you are why I'm here. I'm deeply, deeply honored. This is one of those moments. I do Fox News, actually. I do a lot of interviews on Fox News, and Kirby was like, he found me earlier, he's like, are you good? Like, he's like, Fox News should be so much more, you know, you've got 6 million people, here you only have 600 or 800 people. It's like, yeah, but this is more important. And it is, and I am nervous, so I'll just incorporate that, because I'm probably more nervous than my Fox News interview. But it's great to be here. I want to thank my mom and her husband, Lowell, for supporting me, and thank you, Conrad, for having me here officially. Now, a word from our sponsors. I was told by Kirby that if I would drop, either in the articles I write, for the newspapers, or in my interviews, Doc Difference, or let's see, what's the other ones? Doc Rocks, I would get residual checks. And then, actually, I want to do another product placement, because this happens in the movies all the time. I was supposed to be at an alumni gathering in D.C. this weekend for Eastern Mennonite University, and I emailed the guy who was organizing, Tim Schwarzenegger, I don't think any relation to Conrad. And I said, hey, I can't be here, I'm going to do the commencement address at CDHS, or CDM, what's your acronym? CDMHS. Yeah. I went to CCHS, so that's it. Center for Christmas. I said, I should have said, but didn't. What if I drop EMU? Every time I drop EMU in my speech, could I get like a $100 check or something to get these No product placement. So when I was thinking about what to say, I thought of 3 P's. I thought, well, I could talk about the poetical, the political, or the personal. So the poetical is this. I mean, I dig deep on all the cliches, you know, carpe diem, seize the day, you can find me in the back of the, you know, jacked up tailgate. These kind of really important phrases that will guide them for the rest of their lives. Eleanor Roosevelt had one of my favorite phrases, do something every day that scares you. Now, you might be all for that. Parents are like, Michael, why did you say that? And if they do something that scares them, and maybe it's litigation, lawsuit, I'm not legally liable. Or I thought, you know, the golden rule, the golden rule's pretty good, you know, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But I strapped the poetical because you probably have your own kind of guiding phrase, and I don't want to be cliche, so I'm skipping the cliche, skipping the poetical. And I thought, well, what about political? Because that's why I'm here, because Kirby takes his social issues class in Washington, D.C., and I get a bunch of students for like an hour. I used to work for a congressman, so we'd stuff up in Congressman Honda's small office and we'd have a talk. So I can talk about the political, because there are some really interesting experiences, and I had a great conversation last night with a bunch of social studies teachers here, really interesting about how Mennonites and those of us who think about social justice, economic justice, environmental justice, how do we engage policy? How do we engage media? Should we? My father was a preacher, both grandfathers were preachers, and I came from an environment here in Ohio where we did engage policy, we did engage media. But when working for Congress, I had these incredible opportunities where Congressman Honda, my boss, he's on the phone with President Obama, and President Obama, we're in a cafeteria of all places, and the president chooses that time to call my boss, who's not terribly articulate. It's true. If he was, I'd say it's true. President Obama calls him because he's trying to pressure him to support this war funding bill. Obama wanted another $300 billion to go to Afghanistan. My boss was against it. I gave him a bunch of talking points, and they're in the cafeteria, and it's the cacophony of tourism and chatter, and like, oh, Congressman, can we talk, blah, blah, blah. He's talking to President Obama, and he delivers so eloquently the talking points I gave him. And I was like, that is change I'm making. I gave my boss, who's normally pretty inarticulate, the right words to say why this war, he didn't want to fund this war, and he was talking to the president. Apparently the president was really upset and was like, they're doing this heavy, like, sign agreement. Or how about this? The Pentagon's lead attorney, their general counsel is what they call it, says in a speech to a bunch of graduates at West Point, he says, if MLK, Martin Luther King, was alive today, I think he would support the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. I think differently because I think Martin Luther King was all about nonviolence. He protested the Vietnam War, and that's arguably why he got shot. So I write a letter for a bunch of members of Congress. We send it over to the Pentagon, to their lead attorney, and say, we actually take issue with your assertion that Martin Luther King would endorse the wars in Afghanistan. So that got us into a conversation. Had I not been there, or any one of you, as you go forth, that conversation wouldn't have happened. Or may not have happened. Or I thought about when I was on the House floor. The House floor is where the President gives the State of the Union. So if you've ever watched the State of the Union, that's where he gives it in the House chamber. And I was there with 80 members of Congress presenting a bill that I wrote, not unlike Jeff. Jeff has an assignment in his economics class that we learned last night, where you have to kind of create a mock federal budget. Well, we wrote an alternative budget that focuses on social justice, economic justice, environmental justice, and we put it on the House floor, and I was there with members of Congress, and it was so gratifying to see our work being talked about in Congress. But most of you have heard me give the political spiel. Let's scratch that. How about the personal? I had 4 experiences before I was 21 that both devastated me and completely transformed my life. When I was 8 years old, my father had a stroke. And he lost his ability to speak and write. And I vividly remember sitting beside him on his bed as I was teaching him how to write M-I-K-E, my name. And it's a pretty powerful experience when you're an 8-year-old teaching your father how to write again because of the stroke, he lost his ability to speak and write. And to teach him roles completely reversed. A year later he died, and so Mom raised 3 of us kids. A couple years after that, I'm in an awful car accident. My car rolls. For those of you who drive in Amish country, you know this. The dip right beside the road dug out by the wheels. Well, I was 16, didn't know how to drive, just learning. Tire gets in, leads to a devastating accident. Car's totaled. It rolls several times, lands upside down. I walk somehow. And a couple years after that, I had 2 heart procedures. Thankfully, I was healed. Most of you, I think, have 1 electrical pathway. I was born with 2. And it forces a heart rate of 250 times a minute, which leads to death, and a couple of athletes have already died. I have 2 heart procedures. The first one fails. It's 9 hours long. I'm awake the entire time. I feel it going into my heart and like burning and severing because they have to burn off that electrical pathway. If it fails, they send me to the guy who invented the procedure, the specialist, because they only take special cases. He fixed me. And so by the time I'm 21, I learned 2 incredible things, which I'm guessing you've learned. If you haven't, you'll have an opportunity, and hopefully you live through it. It's time is precious, life is precious. We do have to seize every moment and serve people, protect people, help the disadvantaged. My father was disadvantaged. And from an early age, I became really, really protective of those who are marginalized and disadvantaged. I had extreme privilege. I mean, after Dad died, we had food stamps. So we weren't economically privileged per se, certainly in comparison to other people around the world. But I'm a tall white man, which comes with an enormous amount of privilege. So those who don't, and my dad didn't have privilege, he couldn't speak properly, he couldn't write properly. Learned early to protect him. So that's not what I'm going to talk about. WWJD and OMG, LOL, ROTFL. What does that mean? Well, what? We know what the OMG means, probably, I'm guessing. So we need to do this. LOL means? ROTFL means? Very good. Just in case you didn't know what that meant. I just want to be clear. So, as I'm thinking about what do I talk about? Do I talk about the poetical, the political, the personal? No. Da Vinci style, Lord of the Rings style, Harry Potter style, the answer's in the verse. Now, apparently, the verse isn't everyone's verse, because I was speaking to some students last night and they're like, oh yeah, I don't know what our verse is. But the baccalaureate program last night had a verse, Psalms 143:8. Who knows it? Okay. Well, it was on your baccalaureate program, so if you forget it, go there. And this is your takeaway. It's all in the verse. And here we go. My adaptation is a culmination of several variations on a theme. So I'm not summarizing, but I'm pulling from several different versions. Let me hear of your mercy in the morning, for I trust in you. Make way the path wherein I should walk, for I lift up my soul to you. Is that cool? Is that clear? Let me hear of your mercy in the morning, for I trust in you. Make way, show me where I should walk. That was in the program. Make way the path wherein I should walk, for I lift up my soul to you. Okay, so let's start with that. I'm just going to break it down, because there are 5